In a world where the norm in Hollywood is to do remake after remake, we get the newest addition to the remake list with the remake of the 1980s classic Roadhouse starring Patrick Swayze. This time we got Jake Gyllenhaal in the starring role. It's currently streaming on Amazon Prime Video, but the question is, how did it live up? What's happening, guys? Back at you with another video. We got the newest remake in Roadhouse, a remake to the 1980s classic. This time around we got Jake Gyllenhaal in the starring role playing the main character of Dalton. Now when it comes to the 1980s classic Roadhouse, I remember watching it I think like at least one time when I was a kid. So I was going into this newest remake, this newest movie without those, whole nostalgia goggles. So I was able to watch this movie and take this movie in as its own little kind of thing. I did end up rewatching the 1980s classic of Roadhouse after I watched this newest Roadhouse, and I just kind of wanted to get like a little comparison and just see how the old Roadhouse holds up. But we're not talking about the old Roadhouse right now. We're talking about the newest movie of Roadhouse. So when it comes to this new movie, definitely is a remake. You can definitely tell while watching the movie, it does definitely have some similar story beats that the original Roadhouse had. But the way that they did this movie was, instead of like doing like a shot for shot or just a beat by beat story retelling of the old Roadhouse, this one does add its own certain style to things. Like I said, definitely similar story beats like the original Roadhouse, but it definitely has its own certain style to it. So basically, we have Jake Gyllenhaal playing the starring role of Dalton, and he basically goes to the Florida Keys as he's hired to basically be this bouncer, be this, this night guard over at this newest roadhouse in Florida. But it turns out there's actually something bigger, as there's corruption and there's this big tycoon type fella that's trying to take over the roadhouse, or trying to get the roadhouse, or at least that area of the roadhouse. So not only does he get into this battle with the protecting the roadhouse, he's ended up protecting basically that whole small area. And with the way that Jake Gyllenhaal plays the character of Dalton, he comes across as this sort of charming, calm demeanor. The way that he just goes up to characters and the way he faces characters, to where he's like this calm demeanor, to where he's just basically saying, nonchalantly, he's like saying, "Oh, do you have insurance, or is there a hospital nearby?" Like, he knows that he could be able to beat down these guys and beat down people, but he doesn't do it he doesn't say things in like an egotistical way. Like, he says like, "Oh, I'm going to beat you down," or something like that. He says it in like a calm demeanor, nonchalant type of way, to where he kind of makes it look like he has this sort of dry, deadpan humor. He kind of says it with just like a straight face, and he's just like calm demeanor, to where he's just, nonchalantly saying these things to these guys. But the way he delivers these lines, and it kind of comes across as kind of funny in a way, because they got a couple chuckles out of me here and there, just the way he says it with just this deadpan straight face, and just the way he just talks to these guys before he actually beats them down. And it just comes across as this kind of funny, kind of quippy type, with him. And he does have a couple of quips in here and there. There's even one quip, slight spoiler, but there's like one quip where later on in the movie, when he's fighting against Conor McGregor, and Conor McGregor's beating his head into a piano, he literally says, Jake Gyllenhaal says like, "Oh, this piano sounds out of tune," while he's getting his head beat down in the piano. And then Conor McGregor like is older, saying, "Oh, it sounds fine to me," and he continuously beats his head into the piano. It's just kind of funny. It's just funny all around. So he has these kind of deadpan, quippy, dry type humor of sorts, where it's just like he just says it with a straight face, but it comes across as a charming way. And speaking of Conor McGregor, I thought he was definitely a fun addition to this movie. You could tell that when Conor McGregor is in this movie, he's definitely having some fun with this role. He's like sort of he's psychotic in a way. The way he just comes on the screen, and then like when we first see him pop on screen, he's literally naked. He's just walking around naked, just walking around with like this strut of some sorts, and he's just has this giddy smile that he's always wearing throughout the movie too. And he was just honestly a fun addition, and it really looked like he was having fun with this role, and just the way that he was definitely a badass in this movie, to where of course he's a UFC fighter, and you get some great action with him, the way he's a fighter and all. So you definitely get some great action, but the way he just played this role is just fun to see him on screen. He was a lot of fun just to watch throughout this movie. And with the way this movie was shot, it definitely feels like the way the movie is shot, it feels like you're in the action. It feels like you're there watching the fights for real. The way that they get some of these close-ups, the way they like pan around, and the way that they just shoot it to where it's like you can actually feel some of the fighting going on, and it's like, you know, even hear some bones crack or bones break, or you hear the punches, or it almost feels like you feel the punches. It makes you wince at some of the parts in there too, because it's just violent in a way. The way the action is shot, there's a lot of great action going on in this movie, and the action really feels like it's kind of an old school throwback type of action, to where you have a lot of fun with it. And when it comes to like the third act action, it definitely goes a little campy and a little bit overboard. Not pun not intended, but you'll see what I mean once you get there. But the way that they shot this and the way the action is throughout the movie is honestly some good fun action going on. And I would say with this movie, it definitely is fun. Like, fun will probably be the big word with this movie, if I was to say one word for this movie, where it is a lot of fun. You have fun with this movie if you're able to go into this movie and just take it for what it's worth. You know, take it as it is and just go into this movie. Just have fun with it, you know. If you're one of those ones that was kind of against this whole remake because you're in love with the classic Roadhouse that we got back in the 80s with Patrick Swayze, I don't know if you'll like this movie. But if you at least saw the trailer and you thought that you could like it, or, you know, you thought you had a little fun with the trailer, and maybe you could probably be able to have fun with this movie. And like I was saying, it definitely has similar story beats, but it does it in it does its own style too, and it does some things in a respectful way to the original. But I also will say that there's a couple of shots in here, like here and there, that it looked like they used some CGI or some kind of something. I don't know exactly, but it definitely looked a little bit wonky in source, like especially in the beginning part. There's an opening scene that we get with Post Malone. Post Malone is actually in this movie. But there's an opening scene where we get with Post Malone, and he's taking on these guys. He's fighting these guys, beating them down and stuff like that. But while he was fighting and he was punching this one guy, it looked like it was kind of sped up in a way, but like the way it comes across in the movie looks like it's sped up, but also looks in a way like wonky CGI. So I don't know if they used CGI during that part or what it was, but there's definitely some other parts throughout the movie. Not too many parts, but like there's a couple of spots here and there where it looked like they used some CGI, but it looks slightly wonky. But I was able to at least ignore it for the most part and just be able to watch it as it is. And when it comes to like the romance between Jake Gyllenhaal's character and Daniela Melchior character, you know, they have this romance that's not necessarily believable. It doesn't feel fleshed out enough, or it just kind of feels like it's not really needed, and it's only needed in a small part in the third act. That's it. That's how the third act kind of gets started in a way, is because of their romance. But it felt like throughout the movie, like their romance was just not fleshed out. It felt like it wasn't needed. It just felt like it just didn't really make sense too much, really, honestly. Like, honestly, it just felt kind of unbelievable. It didn't really resonate well. And the deal with Jake Gyllenhaal's character, and it was similar to the way Patrick Swayze's character was in the original Roadhouse. This character of Dalton, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, does have a tragic past, or at least a tragic event that happened. And we get a couple flashbacks here and there that lead up to the conclusion of that tragic event, to where we find out kind of what happens. You know, they play a flashback in a certain spot. The movie goes on, they'll play a certain flashback in nurse spot, and we get these different flashbacks and different things to that event. And then we finally get the conclusion to the event later on in the movie. I don't know, it just felt a little bit disconnected, honestly. Like, I wasn't fully invested with the tragic event that happened. Like, the way they do the tragic event is like, it pretty much explains why he is the way he is, and then it kind of explains why he goes to a certain place, or, you know, goes to a certain mindset in the third act. Basically, it just does that, but like, it just still feels kind of disconnected from the movie a little bit, to where, I don't know, you're not really fully enveloped in it. But overall, I thought this was a fun movie. Definitely was being able to kill some time with this movie. Honestly, I might have If it was in theaters, maybe I would have checked it out, you know, see if it'll actually be good in theaters, to have that, you know, theatrical experience, to have that surround sound and things like that, to be able to see that movie in that kind of scope. Might have been interesting to see that movie, right, in that kind of scope, to where it's in theaters. And but no, they didn't want to release it in theaters. It's just on streaming for now. But yeah, like I said, it's a lot of fun. This movie is definitely a lot of fun. If you're looking into, if you saw the trailer and you have fun with the trailer, then you could be able to probably have some fun with this movie. You might be able to like it. For when it comes to Roadhouse, fans of the original Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, if you were like really against this movie and really against them doing a remake, I don't know if this will really gear towards you. But for those people that are just going in for a fun time, to kill some time for 2 hours, and just going into it with an open mind, you could be able to have some fun with it. There's definitely a lot of fun elements going on in this movie. And just for me personally, for myself, I did have a lot of fun with this movie. I wasn't bored throughout the movie. I had a lot of fun with it, a lot of good action, kind of throwback old school type of action going on, with some interesting shots going on. There is a mid-credit scene, and it's just kind of played for laughs, really, about one character. So if you want to stick around for that, I definitely say you stick around for that if you just want to get a quick laugh out of something. But yeah, that's going to do it for this review. If you've seen Roadhouse, definitely let me know down in the comments below what you thought of it. But if y'all would consider subscribing to the channel, turn notifications on so you know when I post another video. Hope you all have an awesome day, and I'll see you on the next one.